Hi everybody, thanks for coming along and seeing the film tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. I just thought we're going to do a little impromptu Q&A here. I can share with you some of the most commonly asked questions from the now 83 Q&As that have been done. But I do have a couple of questions here first. So the first one was, what kind of reaction have the Dietitians Association of Australia had in response to the film? Are we likely to see any change at a policy and advocacy level? And clearly the Health Star initiative is incredibly flawed. So in terms of the dietitians, I've received some really lovely feedback from individual dietitians, people that have seen the film. Some came along and were part of the panels that we had during the Q&A. And I've received emails and run into people in the street that have been very supportive. But as a collective, the Dietitians Association, they're in a tricky spot themselves to make a statement, mainly because, and I think it goes to the heart of what is a bit of an issue in our country, is that last year their third biggest contributor to revenue was the food industry. So this is companies like Nestle and Coca-Cola, very, very large food companies that rely heavily on sugar that are contributing money to the association. So look, whether there's any kind of questionable dealings going on really doesn't matter. I think for the sake of integrity, we shouldn't have the food industry involved in dietary recommendations, I don't think. I just think people have lost faith and trust in big business, in government, and I think we want to see absolutely clear lines, especially when it comes to information around what we should be eating. In terms of the policy level, look, again, that's a tricky one. We've got to understand that Australia is the third largest exporter of sugar in the world. So as we've seen with this new trade agreement that's going on at the moment, that it's very tricky because it's such a powerful group in Australia, the sugar industry. So I don't think that we're going to see anything immediately happen at a government level. I think what's exciting about the response to the film, and there's just a food revolution going on at the moment, and it's happening at a grassroots level very quickly. People are spreading the message, they're changing their ways, schools are signing up for our action kits. That I think it needs to happen at that level. If we yell loud enough, then the government will eventually do something about it, but we can't wait for them to make a change. We've got a parliamentary screening in the UK. There's talk of one very soon in Australia as well, so hopefully that'll start some conversation. I know there's a big discussion around sugar tax at the moment, whether there is a government intervention at that level. That's happening in the UK. There's one being trialled in Berkeley in America at the moment that's having great success. So look, it certainly kicks up a strong debate. There was a study done in Australia recently by the Obesity Policy Coalition that said that 85% of Australians would support a sugar tax as long as the money was going to subsidise fresh fruits and vegetables in lower socioeconomic areas, children's school, hospitals, things like that. But yeah, I'd only support it if that was the case, but I don't know how we're going to get that transparency around the government being clear with where that money's going. In all likelihood, it might just disappear into the coffers. But if there was an independent group set up to handle that, I'd absolutely support it. In terms of the Health Star initiative, yes, it's definitely got some early wobbles. The fact that a Big Mac can get 3 stars and butter can get half a star, or that Up and Go can get 4.5 stars and plain milk only gets 4 stars, I think we've got some problems. I think a lot of people have lost faith in it. And again, the simple message that we try and push with the film is that, almonds don't need a star rating. Real foods don't need a star rating. Cucumbers, fresh fruits and vegetables, if you avoid the packet foods, they don't need a tick or a star rating. They're just food. So as much as we can eat food, we're all going to be better off for it. Next question is, after the experiment, did you have to wean yourself off sugar to deal with the cravings? So I guess the advantage I had is that I'd stopped sort of eating refined sugar 3 years before the experiment. So I had a reference point to what I was like or how it was to live without refined sugar. And I don't think many people have that. Most people have had sugar every day of their lives since they were children, so they don't actually know what it's like to experience a couple of weeks without it. And I did, and I was very excited to get back to that point. I'm particularly sensitive to it, so it just suits me better to not have too much of it in my life. And so I was more excited than sort of dreading the end of that experiment. I couldn't wait to start eating fresh fruits and real foods and vegetables again, because I know how much better they make me feel. So there's a couple of great tricks to understand that Fat, healthy fat, also activates a very similar reward center in the brain, not quite as strong as sugar, but it's still there. So things like avocado, coconut products, oil, coconut husk, coconut cream, those kind of things can be really good for a craving because they still stimulate that part of the brain, but not in the same way. And I heard a great trick from a nutritionist in America that was reverse psychology. So if you have a craving, have something really disgusting like apple cider vinegar, and it almost tricks your brain. It says, well, I'm not going to have a craving if you're going to give me that garbage. So I think that's a really good technique to use. The film is attracting worldwide interest, and even the UK government is taking notice by attending parliamentary screenings. Is the Australian government willing to engage? Yep, I've sort of touched on that before. There is talk in plans at the moment with an Australian government screening. We'll see how many attend though, but we're certainly trying to put it out there and make it happen. I think in August, September, that's looking like happening. How has the film's focus on the Mayweru community helped improve the education and health outcomes through the setup of the Mayweru Sugar Foundation? That's probably the most exciting part of the whole experience for me so far, is the response that we've had from the people in Armata and the Mayweru and the APY lands. They're just a bit sick and tired of the bureaucracy of waiting for government to make changes, so they're very excited the fact that we've just come in and we're able to help them out and get money very quickly. We've had an incredible response from even people that watch the film that then make a donation in private. We've had lots of philanthropic interest from different groups, and we've been able to re-employ John Tregenza, the chainsaw, already. He's being employed, and we're just about to send up our first batch of dietitians and nutritionists to train up a group of 20 Aboriginal men and women that want to learn nutrition, and then we'll employ them full-time in the different stores to help other people with their shopping and make smarter shopping choices, put up posters, and just sort of start spreading the word and trying to get their sugar content down. We've also got access to the database of the stores so we can see which foods are going in, how much sugar's going in, and is there going to be a change over the next few years. So definitely very excited about that, and it's moving ahead very quickly. The other questions that often come up at the Q&A, which says a lot about our Australian culture, is what about alcohol? Everyone asks about the sugar content in alcohol. They often ask it like, so, you know, is there much sugar in alcohol? But really they're kind of saying, don't tell me I can't have wine. I'll let go of the apple juice and the low-fat yogurt, Mr. Sugar Man, but if I have to get rid of wine, you're a dead man. So I can safely say that a lot of the fructose in particular is burnt off in the fermentation process to make alcohol. So some is left in to give it a sweetness. So for example, champagne still has about 2 teaspoons of sugar per glass, but then white wine, red wine, they have virtually none. Obviously the vodkas and the spirits are made with either a rye or a sugar as well, so there's not much in there unless you add a mixer. Even things like the tonic water's got lots of sugar in it, so a gin and tonic's going to be, 7 or 8 teaspoons. Vodka cranberry, 12 teaspoons. And even the mojitos, obviously they're going to have high sugar levels. And beer is a different type of sugar, maltose. And you'd need to drink a lot of beer to get a fatty liver, a lot of beer. So really, again, like with anything, just choose where you want to have your sugar. If it's a glass of wine, great. Maybe don't have the low-fat yogurt and the apple juice on the same day. And the other question that comes up is artificial sweeteners. At the moment, probably the safest alternative sweetener is seen to be stevia. It's a natural sweetener from a plant from Paraguay. You can buy a real plant. Bunnings even sell them now, or the refined version. So obviously the real plant is always the better choice. I think it's sort of, I say stevia is like methadone for sugar addicts. I think it's a great transition off a very high sugar diet, but we really try and encourage people to move away from things needing to be sweet to be good, because then you give your palate a chance to adjust. And that's what happened to me. I was drinking 2 cans of Coke a day for 20 years, and now I find a banana sweet, which if you told me that 5 years ago, I would have thought it was just a load of hippie nonsense. But it's true, your palate does adjust, and you start noticing the subtle nuances of natural flavours again, and you kind of don't want the fake stuff or the real stuff. And even now, if I have a sip of Coke, it is completely overwhelmingly strong for me. So it's amazing how you can really move away from that constant sweet taste. So we really encourage people to do that, and especially there's lots of studies now, one done on 66,000 women only recently in France with Diet Cokes and diet drinks, and it found that they still, because it's often 200 times or 300 times sweeter than sugar, it still activates the brain with that reward, but you don't get the full caloric satisfaction of the food, so you might seek out a donut or a chocolate bar later in the day. And also some of these artificial sweeteners still trigger insulin because there's a cue that you're about to eat, something sweet's hitting your system, so insulin does spike, And as we know in the film, once that insulin's around, it can trap the fat in your body. It's very hard to burn off fat when you're drinking, when your insulin levels are up. And also the study showed that because these drinks are so much sweeter than sugar, the average woman that was drinking these in the study of 66,000 women was 3 times a day. So I think it's just best to avoid artificial sweeteners. Have the real thing every now and again. Treat yourself. If we can get back to sugar being a treat as it's supposed to be, then we're going to be fine. It's just at the moment we've got way out of control. So I hope that helped. Thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed the film. And I'll let you go home now and clean out your pantries. All the best.